Batcave this week, where we are reviewing Dragon Tides, which is the new Bruce Lee board game from Artistic Justice Games. I couldn't remember the name of it. And we look forward. I've been looking forward to this game for a long time, and finally got it to the table. And so we're going to bring it to you in our 4 traditional categories of gameplay, replayability, theme, and components. And we'll start in reverse order over here with our newest edition. Oh, let's introduce ourselves first, especially since we got a new addition to the clan.
Philip,
Chris.
long time viewer, first time attendee.
See, even you, if you watch long enough, you could become a reviewer. What's your name?
Hey everybody, good to see you again. The OGG back one more time.
And we're going to let the newest member, Philip, start out with components.
Components are really good. I was impressed. The miniatures that came with this game are really, really detailed, especially for the fact that they're portraying Bruce Lee and Brandon Lee. I was impressed with how good the detail was. I rank it even better than the miniatures in Legend of Drizzt and Temple of Elemental Evil. Yeah. So I was impressed with that. Other components, board game material, cards, full-size cards, great that way. Game pieces interlocked pretty solidly. I've seen some with better material, thicker cardstock. Zombicide is still kind of my go-to for board material. That is one of my favorite ones to play. Even though I know the OGG is about fed up with the zombies as it is,
but I can still recognize quality components, and I'll give them that. That's good stuff.
Right. So I was impressed. Overall components, I'd give it a 9.
I have to agree with you that the miniatures themselves are the best I've seen. Every individual base of the miniatures. The only thing that's preventing this from being a perfect miniatures were that they weren't painted. Of course, that's one of my things. But each of the bases were differently sculpted, so they had depending on the character. I wasn't too crazy about all the cardboard chip things. I mean, that's normal nowadays without getting for a Kickstarter game especially, not to get too carried away with the cost price point, but for what it is, it's really good. And even the little mats that you get with your character sheets, they're not too bad. They got full color and they're nice plastic. Sheen on them, so they're not cheap cardboard looking.
Yeah, the one thing you pointed out you didn't like the sliders would have been better, kind of.
Yeah, we kind of discussed having
like that.
Sliders instead of a little chip moving across your board. So I'm gonna go with 8.5 on it because I think it had some room for improvement, and maybe in a second edition game.
Yeah, no doubt. I think on this one with the components, what it did well, it did really well. And then it just sort of left the others to kind of run-of-the-mill, average, everyday stuff. So I'm still going to give it an 8 for components overall because the miniatures are just that good. The artwork looks nice. The layout, the board, and everything is good. But they kind of gave up, it seems like, when they came to just the small parts, the chits, the tokens, that stuff. That they could have done a little bit better. Of course, it did say that being a Kickstarter, that's pretty common. So you can tell that the components that they put some effort into, they hit a home run really great. The other stuff you could tell wasn't as important, and it sort of shows. But overall, strong rating of an 8 on it for me.
And it needed some little glass beads or something to distinguish the different parts.
Kind of played into the theme with it being kung fu martial arts too, even if it was yin yang icons, things like that. A little bit of stuff where they kind of dressed it up a little bit.
Right.
It would have kept it from spending 15 minutes trying to find a green square in a box of squares.
Exactly.
But you summed it up what I was thinking perfectly. All right, so let's move on to theme. What do you think?
Theme overall was pretty interesting. I haven't seen a real kung fu theme before. I mean, I've seen it. You could call it somewhat of a dungeon crawl, I guess,
Yeah,
but
a
it's
little bit.
more not dungeon crawl. I mean, you're playing through basically kind of like an action flick, kung fu action flick. We know how those go. So the theme of being able to play Bruce Lee or somebody like Ivan Drago or something like that, because one of the miniatures kind of looks like Dolph Lundgren, but we can't say that it's Dolph Lundgren. So it was kind of neat to play that out and see. You can imagine like Showdown in Little Tokyo and think back to some of those B action flicks from the 80s and early 90s. So the theme overall for me was interesting. I would probably score it a 8.5, 9 for a theme.
Nice.
I guess 8.5. I guess because I haven't seen it before.
Yeah.
Well, as the board game black belt, this of course is a home run in the theme department for me. That's probably why I've been following this game since its inception. And if it's not enough to play Bruce Lee, you can recreate Laser Cop or whatever it is that Brandon Lee was in. No, not that one. Let's recreate Showdown in Little Tokyo or even
Crow.
better, Big Trouble in Little China,
China. There you
which just the action parts, because this is pretty much just boiled down a movie script to the action scenes. It does have some really badly written dialogue for you to read between each scene, but that's of course kind of par for the course for action movies.
Yeah.
So that fit right in, and but the Chopsaki flicks and it's perfect theme for me. I want to give it a 10, and I can't really think about why I wouldn't, except there's no. I had a problem because they kept saying it's a movie. You have the action, camera lights, action segments of your round, and I just can't reconcile it being an action movie whenever you can get knocked out and there's no script and you kind of go one way or the other. It's like a choose your own adventure book is really what it is, and so it's going to bring it to a 9 because it's kind of hard to reconcile the way they're trying to sell it to you versus what you're really doing, and because the script's not written until you play, because you have to find out if you're going to beat somebody or not before the script is written. So I'm going to give it a 9 for theme because I love it. I love the action movie genre.
Yeah, theme on this. This was really, really strong. I wasn't sure what they were going to do with Kung Fu, with the action movie theme, but it really worked really well. I love a lot of, pirates gets me just about any time. My feelings on zombie are pretty clear, I think, but this is a theme that you don't run into very often, or I'm not sure I've ever played a game with this theme before, actually. So I was excited just to see something new, something different that's big, and then they pulled it off really well. It does give you that feel of those kind of B-level, like you said, chop suey type karate movies. And even in the dialogue that you read, I hope that was on purpose, that they made that, they made it like that real campy kind of.
It was so bad it was good.
Yeah. So I think it worked out pretty well. It's not perfect, but it's pretty close. And I think maybe the reason you're tying in the Kung Fu, and then you're tying in sort of that movie feel, but as the black belt here already mentioned, that didn't quite work as well as I hoped it would, but it's still pretty strong, and the theme works throughout it. You can tell they didn't just slap it on there, so I think it's pretty good, and it deserves an 8.
If anybody's listening, we know that the OGG would go for zombie pirates, which we haven't seen.
This is true.
That's how we get you
We
back
saw
on the
that in the
zombies.
Smash Up. We actually saw that in
Yeah.
the Smash Up. But I'm thinking this. If anybody wants to play this game, it will be because of the theme.
Right, yeah.
Because this is your chance to play Bruce Lee versus Dolph Lundgren and a grand battle royale in an apartment building or something and throw somebody off a roof.
Yeah.
So yeah, theme is what hit it out of the park for me. How about gameplay?
Gameplay was overall, I thought was good. Going back to what y'all said, some of the drawbacks that y'all had where you couldn't give it a 10 for theme because the lights, camera, action of how we played through the game seemed to be a little misleading. Now, I grew up loving choose your own adventure novels, so that aspect to me was really interesting. I thought it was played out good for the fact that, okay, well, we could still die fighting this minor boss and keep progressing through the game. It didn't just end, kind of like Temple of Elemental Evil, when you're dead, this game start over. So this at least lets you go another route and you kind of script the story as you go. So gameplay that way worked for me. Some of the cards, I thought it was lacking some of the abilities because we're talking Kung Fu, again, Bruce Lee, chop socky, flicks, and stuff like that. There were some of the standard attacks, Bruce's 1-inch punch and master of the nunchucks, but some of the other things. I played Brandon when we played through, and I found a lot of his things lacking. He really didn't have a whole lot of martial arts attack. I mean, he had
played
one.
A cop. That's because he played a cop in a lot of his movies, so they give him the cop stuff.
Right, and so he had one roundhouse kick, but everything else seemed to be some mitigate damage or arm bar or something.
He had a gun.
He had a gun, which really didn't seem to do much other than let you hit somebody halfway across the board. So I thought it kind of fell down in that. Other than that, I mean, still it was fun to play. I think people that are into the 80s action flicks and that type of era would like the way it plays out. Again, theme's going to be the big driver. So compared to some other games I've played, I'd rather play Zombicide for sure. The Firefly game, I even actually enjoyed it a little bit more because I think the gameplay went a little bit better with the Firefly theme.
That's more complicated.
True, more in depth. This is for a fast pace. I mean, it took us quite a while to play it for first time through. I think once you got the rules down and the movements down, you could fly through it pretty quickly and enjoy it like an action flick would play. So, I mean, overall, I think I'd give gameplay an 8.
Mm-hmm. It reminded me while you were talking about things, I forgot to mention in the components, so I'll add the modifier into this score to make up for what I forgot about in the components. But the components, the rule book was horrid.
Oh yes, yeah, I'll agree with that.
It was. I mean, if I have to get on Board Game Geek to look up what interpretation of rules, then you've already lost. And that happened like multiple times.
Yeah, there were several instances we couldn't even find.
They didn't even reference a piece of the game in the book, or they showed a picture of the piece, so we knew it was supposed to be in the box. But then we couldn't find any use for the piece.
That was like the main game board for the bad guys.
Yeah.
It didn't tell us what you were supposed to do with it. It just had a picture of it.
Yeah.
It was pretty bad. So their editors get an F. But the gameplay itself was pretty good, pretty fast paced. Once you got it down, it was pretty easy round to round. It was pretty easy to track. One person playing the game plays the bad guys, or plays the director who's managing all of the bad guys and the bosses and the mini bosses. So it's kind of like a video game. And then everybody else plays the team of dragons that are infiltrating the gang or whatever you're doing and beating up the bad guys. And so even as the director or all the bad guys, it was easy to keep track of all my guys and how much points of damage they had, which was another problem with the rule book, finding out how much points of damage people had at first. It's in there, it's just not very clear. So gameplay as a whole, I would give like an 8, but then I'm going to take away a point for that crappy rule book and make it a 7. So my score here is a 7.
My score for gameplay is also a 7, but not exactly for the same reasons. It's similar. This game is played as a cooperative game, and it's played in sort of a mini campaign or kind of a choose your adventure style setting. And with that in mind, they ease you into it. And I'll admit I didn't realize that at first. And after the first round, I kind of thought, oh no, this is going to be kind of a long, dull game. But then it became obvious that they're just trying to kind of take you in step by step, teach you the game a little bit. So it sort of has a built-in tutorial with it. And then once you really get rolling into the game, it becomes pretty fun. But that first scenario is you just do A and then you do B and then you do A and you do B and that's it. But don't worry about that. Don't let that throw you off. It definitely picks up, and I think by the later rounds, by round 3 or 4, I realized, okay, there's some depth to this game. There is more that you can do. There's more options, and this is pretty fun. And the campaign book, or the movie script, however, whatever you want to call it, that's a good idea. And that's a neat idea, which leads you. It allows you to play the same game but have different outcomes each time. So the gameplay starts out a little slow, gets a whole lot better. By the end of it, we were really, really razor close to kind of finishing it, and I think everybody was really on the edge of their seat and into it by then. So it picks up, starts a little slow. I'd give it a 7. But replayability, which we're about to talk about next, I think is strong with this game, and the next time around, I might raise it up a little bit.
And I agree. Replayability that leads right into replayability. And like you said, the Choose Your Own Adventure book. I mean, you could replay the same mission several times with the same group of people, and the path's going to be different each time.
I think there was 8. I figured out as 8 paths different. You could play basically the same adventure 8 times, because you've got a success and failure at the end, but you can get there 2 different ways because there's like 4 different paths. So you basically could go jump back and forth, or you could go straight down the good or the bad. And so, I don't know, I come up with 8, I think, different ways to play the same mission or same movie to get different.
And that was just one of the movies that we worked through. Now, you played both of them.
I've played both.
You played the game twice with 2 different groups of people. And each time, I think you lost the first time, and we lost.
No, we won the first time.
You won the first time, and like
barely.
Like Mike said, we missed it by, I think it was like 1 point of health. And so we were all sitting there. It come down to the final guy standing, last dragon type thing. And one roll made the difference.
He didn't get the glow.
Yeah, he didn't have the glow for sure. But for replayability, I think the ability to have that multiple pass, replay the same mission over and over again, I think that leads into the replayability.
Yes.
I will agree with the OGG that the very first mission was very misleading.
Yeah.
Because we were all like, this is going to be a
very
dull
dry.
game.
Yeah.
If this is how it is
Yeah.
till we go through. This is going to be dull. And what did I just spend my money on buying this game? Type concept. But by the time we got to the third action scene, I mean, it was intense. And rooms were loaded up, and you had to pick and choose if you wanted to try to win or if you just wanted to let yourself lose and build up for the next round. So that made it kind of challenging. Overall replayability, I would give it an 8. I think we could play it again. I mean, and enjoy it. You know, once you run through all 8 paths, eventually you're going to play through it. It might go down, but there's 2 scripts with the game.
2 scripts, that makes it.
That's at least 16 times you'd run it to get all the way through, and I'm sure if the success of the game, I'm sure they'll bring out some other scripts. I can see them building in future scripts as expansions for it to keep it going.
And it discusses how to like make your own little scenarios or whatever. You could write your own script and just write some really bad dialogue and mix it together. So
or just pick your favorite kung fu movie and just kind of script it out of that. We could do it. Big Trouble in Little China.
Do a game of death.
That's right.
Octagon, bring in something like that. That would be interesting.
What was yours for?
I give it an 8.
8. Replayability is one of the high points of this game because of the choose your own adventure path. It's like reading that book when you're a kid over and over because you just want to see what happens if you didn't choose that path or not die on your second page. Replayability plus the fact that in one movie if you just play one movie, you don't play all the characters.
Right. Yeah.
You don't get to use all of them. So if you play both movies, you've gotten to play all the characters or see them all as bad guys or good guys. But then you have scenarios you could build using the bad guys as the good guys. So it's really endless possibilities. The only thing stopping it is that you would have to have really want to play. Really, you're just playing fights over and over with just some dialogue to make you feel like a movie. Right. But the fights are really what you're playing it for, and it would be fun coming up with new ways to fight. And I think I'd give it an 8 for replayability because it's pretty quick to set up. It's fun. It's not deep thinking at all. It's just fun to play. And you can play a scenario within 30 minutes and be done. Or you could play a movie and take 2.5 hours.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. The replayability is going to be a high point for this game. It'll be easy to add expansions onto it, and I'm sure they'll come out. More scripts, more figures, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, this game, I gotta think one of the big perks that they were trying to come up with, or one of the big benefits they were thinking about, was being able to play through this several times, and you can see that immediately. So I think that's a good thing. Anytime they give you a chance to play through the game and have a different feel, I think that's a great option. So let's give it a 9 for me on replayability. It's pretty strong, really pretty strong.
And I would even, I lost my train of thought there, but I was thinking something along the lines of their first expansion should be a new rule book. I mean, they should just not even put out any new miniatures until you give me a rule book that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's that bad, people. But we managed to pull it out anyway. We figured it out. Had to consult online a few times, but a couple of rules were kind of really vague, and we made a call.
We made a few house rules, and they may intended that. You never know what their mindset was with the ability to script new missions.
Yeah.
You may have to script some your own house rules to go with your mission if you're making up
I like
your own mission.
fact that you can like pick up stuff and throw it too. Like you can pick up the bottle or the chicken or whatever and just whack somebody with it.
Here comes the chicken.
So there you have it. We summed up our thoughts, and it actually came out pretty high considering what I was thinking in my head. But it is a really good game. So we'll put the score right there. And if you think that's a score high enough to make you want to go out and buy it, then jump up and shut this off and go buy it. Otherwise, we'll see you next time, which is going to be our 100th episode.
100.
100 already.
We got a special, what is it, like the ABC special presentation?
Yes.
Coming up. It's going to be knock your socks off. Brilliant. You won't want to miss it, so tune in next time for episode 100 of the Board Game Batcave. And until then, we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching.
Have a good one.